Okay, welcome to Retell AI. This is when you sign up for Retell, this will be the homepage that you'll discover. And the first thing that you want to do is you want to click on create an agent, right? This is where we'll create the agent. Now, with Retell, you have the choice to basically build a voice agent or chat agent. For now, for the purposes of this video, we'll be focusing on voice agents. So you just need to click on voice agents. And from here, it might feel overwhelming, but stick with me. There are 4 different types of voice agents that you can create in Retell. The simplest one is called single prompt agent. What that means is you build the entire voice agent with just one prompt. One big prompt, that's it. You will build your voice agent. Obviously, this is only for simple use cases like, for quick demo, or very simple use cases that only have one specific function. And ideally, it shouldn't have more than 3 different tool calls. I'll explain what tool calls in a second. Now, if you want to be a bit familiar with it, you feel free to kind of click on some of the templates as provided by Retell, have explore it around, but you don't have to do that. You can just follow the video while I explain everything in detail. The second agent that you can build in Retell is called multi-prompt agent. As the name suggests, you basically control the entire voice agent with more than one prompt. So you have 2, 3, 4 multiple different prompts, kind of dissecting different specific tasks or specific context of one voice agent. This is usually where we will build agents for production use cases or normal use cases, for example, rescheduling, lead qualification, etc. Right? And the most kind of structured use cases is what we call conversational flow agent. This conversational flow agent usually have very structured conversational flow. So it's step 1, do this, step 2, do this, and then if this happened, then do this. If that happens, then do that. It's very rigid. It's very highly formatted. It's great for again, production use cases, and really depends on your business setting. You would then decide between the multi-prompt agent and the conversational flow agent. Now, personally, I usually work with conversational flow agent with client projects for actual business projects. But again, it depends on your use cases. Feel free to have a look around for the templates again. The last one is custom LLM. You can basically attach your own custom LLM link. Normally, you won't be doing that, so I'm not going to cover that in this video. Now, all you have to do for the first part of this video, we'll be creating your first voice agent, which is a single prompt agent. So all you have to do is click create, and here it is. It is just the interface of your first single prompt agent. Let me just kind of walk you through the environment. This is where you can put your prompt in. Remember what I said? The entire prompt is where you give the instructions to control the voice agent. Now from here, there's multiple things you can do. You can select welcome message if the user speaks first, aka if during a phone call, if you wait for the user to speak first, or if you want the AI to speak first. If you want the AI to speak first, you have 2 options. You can either choose dynamic message, so basically allowing the AI to actually differ between different welcome messages, or custom messages, meaning that you basically define specifically how you want the AI to speak. This is basically your welcome message. And from up here, this is where you can choose your LLM model. You can choose different GPT-5, GPT 4.1, etc. I will just go with GPT 4.1 for now. Of course, you're more than welcome to choose other kind of voice models. There's also GPT-4, real time. Obviously, this is more expensive as well, 0.5 per minute. So normally I'll just stick with GPT 4.1 for now. You can click on the settings. For example, the LLM temperature depends how deterministic or how creative you want your LLM to be. The lower the values, the better is the LLM kind of following your specific instructions in the prompt. You can also allow for structured output, which I will explain in a bit. Here, you can choose your different voices. You can choose between 11 Labs, Cartesa. Cartesa, by the way, by the time of release of this video, they've just released the Sonic 3 text-to-speech model, which makes the kind of the voice more lifelike and more human-like. So I would recommend experiment a little bit with Cartesa if you want, but normally I would just stick with 11 Labs because this is just kind of the standard text-to-speech provider. Of course, you can choose between OpenAI, etc., but I'm not going to go too much into it. You can choose between different languages, and from here, this is important. This is your unique agent ID. Now, for now, this is not super important, but in the future, when we do kind of more custom code, I said call it custom coded, it's actually more automation. So when we're doing outbound calls, when we try to schedule different outbound calls, this is where it's going to be coming into handy. It also gives you a rough estimate of the cost per minute based on the model that you use, the LLM that you use, and the text-to-speech model that you're trying to use. For now, it's just 0.115 per minute. Latency, it gives an estimate of how long it's going to be, like how basically latency is a measure of how long between like kind of the user and the message, right? So latency is basically like a measure of how long you kind of need to wait for the AI to speak, in a sense, right? And you've got tokens, which is tokens cost money, right? So each minute costs around 0.045, for example. Now, this is kind of the background settings of the entire agent. Let me actually show you what I've got so far, so you can have more specific context about an agent. So what I've already done is I already gone ahead and built a clinic receptionist. This is kind of like your first use case. It's an inbound agent, aka people will be calling the receptionist, supposing receptionist, but in this case is an AI receptionist for a medical clinic for booking appointments with the doctor. So the first thing you want to do again is write the prompt, right? So you would say persona, right? You're Emma, an AI voice assistant at Dr. Ava Medical Clinic. You're responsible for greeting patients warmly. So this is where you kind of give like the instructions to the AI, who you're supposed to be doing, and a high level overview of who you are, who you should act as, and what information, what kind of tasks that you should be doing. So you'll be answering questions about the clinic, gathering information, etc. Then the second part of the prompt, you want to give a tasks. So you want to let the LLM knows kind of what your primary task is. In this case, it will be to greet patients warmly and create a comfortable, supportive environment, listen actively and empathetically to their concerns and symptoms, and to answer questions about the clinic, services, hours, procedures, and policies, etc. Right? So this is where you would define what your tasks are. And then I just provide a very brief kind of clinic information, right, about the context and the background, some basic information about the clinic. And we also have some important notices, kind of like notes that the agent should be taken, they should be aware of. And then you have the hours of operation, some contact info, etc. And it's really important for medical use cases, especially, that you need to clarify that upfront that you're an AI assistant and cannot provide any medical advice, diagnosis, treatment, recommendation, medical services. If you're experiencing a medical emergency, please hang up and dial 911 immediately, right? So this is very important. Again, in actual production use cases, it can never like kind of recommend any treatment because it can recommend the wrong treatment, and then the compliance will all goes wrong. So it's very important that very strictly the use case is just booking appointments, right? And this is kind of a good prompt, by the way. We also have kind of the conversational flow for appointment requests. So when the patient indicates they would like to book an appointment, engage in a natural, empathetic conversations to gather information. So you kind of do it step by step. We call this chain of thoughts. It's a prompting technique where you kind of instructs the LLM step by step what to do. Step one, you should listen to their concerns, right? So encourage them to share what's going on. I'll be happy to help you schedule an appointment. Can you tell me what brings you in today, right? And then you just listen actively, show empathy and validation, like understand that must be really uncomfortable. Ask follow-up questions naturally. How long have you been experiencing this? Or is there anything else you've noticed, right? Kind of, this is important. The second step is to get the patient information naturally. This is where you gather the information to get ready for the appointment booking. So you get the name, age, gender, reason for visits, the symptoms that they describe. Again, they're just asking the user to describe the symptoms, not to actually diagnose the problem, right? And then you give the instruction to extract and store the information. Now, this is important. Use the extract user's details tool to capture the variable name. Again, in retail, all variables are defined by double curly brackets, right? This is just how retail works. So you get the name, which is a variable, the patient's full name, age, gender, reason, and symptoms. Now, this is what we call a tool call or a function. In general, an AI agent is only really an agent if it has tool calls, if it has tools. Tools are kind of attached to a LLM. Imagine just a tool attached to an LLM that enables it to actually do real world actions that can affect the real world. For example, right now, if you click on functions, you are able to add tools such as doing calendar bookings, end the call, transfer the call, etc. Right? All you have to do is click on this add function, and you'll be able to actually add your own functions. So you can create your own custom function if you want. However, retail already has a bunch of kind of templated pre-built functions that allows you very, very easily to actually set up these functions, to set up these two calls without much coding needed. So again, let me just kind of go through it them one by one, right? So it's that use the extract user details tool to capture. Then you just go into the extract user details tool. You give the function a name. You give them a description, extract the user's details like full name, gender, age, reason for booking an appointment, and general description of the symptoms the patient is facing from the conversation. And from here, you can actually define what the variables are. So you have the name, variable name, you have the description, right? You have the type, text, right? Number, Boolean, true or false, enum, which is basically a list of values that the variable must take. For example, it can be green, yellow, or red for colors. You can define a variable type called elum for colors that's just take the values red, green, and blue, for example, right? For now, name is just that's text. Age is also just a text, right? Because they can be using and typing like 20 years old, for example. Reason, of course, is a text. The symptoms that they're facing is a text, and gender kind of is also a text, right? So this is basically all the different variables that you're asking the LM to be able to extract from the conversation, right? And this is how you can create your first to call. After that, you need to provide reassurance, right? Thank you for sharing all of that with me. I'll make sure the care you need, right? And then this is important. Now, normally we don't use single prompt agents in production. However, in this case, we are. So we'll try to make the most of it. For each single prompt agent you try to use, there are general rules. The prompt shouldn't be too long. If it's way too long, right, even though we're using GPT 4.1, if you get a really, really long kind of set of tasks, if there are like 20 different tasks to do, the LM is going to get confused and it's going to get the information wrong and it's going to do the wrong things, which you cannot let it happen, especially in the medical use cases. Therefore, it's a very good idea to kind of structure your agent to do one specific thing. In this example, right, this receptionist, all it does is pick up the phone, greet the users, and trying to kind of do discovery, like ask them what's wrong with them, why do they want to book an appointment, and extract the information, right? It's a very specific task they're trying to do, almost like an FAQ, right? Like a first touch point. However, because appointment booking usually takes a lot more custom logic as well, we don't want to overwhelm the agent. So therefore, it's a good idea to kind of dissect the appointment booking to actually a different agent, right? So you say transfer the booking team. Once all information is collected and you use the tool, say, I'm going to connect you to our appointment booking team now, and actually use another tool called agent transfer to transfer the call from the current receptionist to an appointment booking AI agent. And the way we do that is actually by using the agent transfer tool call. And you just click on that, you have the function name, you have the description, and from here, you can actually select which agent to transfer to within Retell. Now, I've already gone ahead, if I just kind of duplicate my tab, I've already gone ahead and actually built it. So you can see that I have, like, ignore this, right? This is just the very first demo that I showed you guys, so I can just delete that. We have the clinic receptionist, and then we also have a single prompt called clinic appointment. If you click on it, this is actually the single prompt agent responsible for appointment booking, right? So this tool actually transfers the call after it extracts the user details and the user wants to go ahead and book an appointment. It will go ahead and call this tool, which is agent transfer, to transfer it to the appointment booking agent. And you can do settings such as execution message, like if the function takes over 2 seconds, the agent can say something like, let me check that for you. I'm just going to say, bear with me just 1 minute, just to make it a little bit more natural to the user, so the user doesn't just like hang in there and just wait, right? Post-call analysis. Select which agent's analysis fields to include in the call history. I just include both this agent and the transfer agent so you get the analysis on both agents in one single call, right? Webhook settings, this is not too important. So I'm just going to actually update that. And yeah, there you go. And then this is basically the main flow of this receptionist. You ask the questions, you greet them, you ask why do they want to go to the clinic, you try to uncover the symptoms that they're facing, you try to extract the information, kind of capturing the leads, and then you transfer them to the appointment booking team, right? And this is just some notes in general, just to help out the LM in some edge cases. So when do we actually transfer, right? So use the agent transfer to when you've successfully collected all the information through the conversation, you've used the extract user detail tools, right, etc., right? And however, you should always, in all voice agent production use cases, you should always have an option to transfer a call to a human, what we call a human in the loop. The reason why is because LM is ultimately kind of stochastic. What that means is that they are not deterministic. The randomness of LM actually sometimes, though very, very unlikely, if you well engineer it, it can hallucinate and it can create some sort of errors or like some sort of cases where it doesn't help the user, right? In such cases, you want basically an insurance policy to actually always be able to let the customers talk to the human to fix any errors, or like if there's some questions that the AI just simply couldn't answer, it should always be able to actually get in touch with human, right? So this is where we call transfer the other stuff. So use the transfer call tool. Again, it's another tool call that we can transfer the call to a human agent, right? You can just transfer it to any number that you want. Now, there's two things: code transfer and warm transfer. Code transfer means the AI agent will just transfer the code to the next like human team without a debrief. Or you can select the warm transfer, where the AI actually, when you transfer the call, the AI will actually provide a debrief to the next agent after transferring the call. So when you're on the call, imagine the AI actually briefing the human team like, oh yeah, by the way, I just talked to Tom and he has these problems when trying to book an appointment with our clinics. Can you help solve it? Right, that's an example. That's what warm transfer is for. Now, the display caller ID, you can either do the retail agent's number or you can do the user's number. So imagine an inbound calling use cases, right? So when you are a receptionist, so you are the AI receptionist, right? And the people are calling your number. So in this case, it will lock basically the user that's trying to call the retail agent, which is the AI agent number, right? So you can trace basically what user has called you. And you can actually configure the transfer behavior settings. You can basically have the on-hold music. You can be like ringtone. This is just kind of you can basically configure however you want. Navigate IVR. Now IVR is basically those use cases on the phone where like press 1 to speak to a human, press 2 if you're having trouble with your bank account, for example, right? This is what IVR stands for. You can enter prompt to instruct the AI to tell the customers to press certain digits for certain use cases, right? We're not going to do that for now. Human detection. So when it's enabled, the AI will only debrief if a real human is detected. It will not transfer if it detects a voicemail, non-human response. So that basically kind of cuts out. So we are avoiding a scenario, right, where like AI speaking to like an automated voice note, which doesn't make any sense. So which is trying to detect a human. If it does, then great. If it doesn't, then it won't do any warm transfer. It won't do any debrief, essentially. You can do whisper message, spoken only to transfer agent. Three-way message, if checked, spoken after successful transfer. So both parties can hear. This is not too important for now. So this is kind of the main use case of like transfer call, and you can transfer it to the human. Now, obviously, you should be able to end the call, right? When the conversation is complete and the patient does not wish to book an appointment, you should ask, is there anything else I can help you today? If no, thank them. Thank you for calling the clinic. Take care and I hope you feel better soon. And then use the end call to end the call. Right, end call 2, which is very important, which is very trivial, which is just end call, right? So these are the 4 tool calls that we have for this agent. Now, supposedly in a single prompt agent, you shouldn't have more than 3 tool calls to kind of maximize the performance. But one of them is just end call, so like this is a very trivial like tool calling. So in this case, it will be fine. And you basically have some sort of empathy guidelines. You have some sort of like what you cannot do, right? Kind of just a set guardrails of like what they shouldn't do and what they should do. You have a prompt that's kind of given the communication styles. If you want to kind of have a look at that, post a video if you want. And then this is important. The agent should have as much context as possible. Well, it should have as much context that it needs as possible. So the current date, you should let it know. In retail, there's a variable called date, which will actually provide the current date. The current time, again, is a retail default variable that will tells you what time it is right now. So it's very useful for appointment booking use cases. I'm just going to save this for now. And for the welcome message, I'm just going to set a static message. Hey, thanks for calling the clinic. How can I help you today? Right? These are the different tool calls. Now, again, the problem with the current setup is that the agent doesn't know the policies, the hours of operations, the specific in and out, and the FAQs, common FAQs of the specific clinic, right? Because it doesn't know, like nowhere have we actually provided the context. So the way to go around that, one is to plug everything into this prompt. But again, we've discussed that already, that it doesn't make sense to just put everything into the prompt because the LLM will just get confused. There's something called a context window where there's a chance that if you put too much information in there, it will just overflow the context window. And there's something called the context rot, meaning the performance of LLM, large language models, actually decrease the more stuff you actually try to plug into the prompt. So the way to go around that is by using something called the knowledge base. So knowledge base is basically a database, a vector store technically, but you don't really need to know what that is. It's basically just a database where the agent can have access, can try to access the information within that knowledge base only if it's needed, right? So basically we have a knowledge base. So if I actually just show you, like if I just click add new knowledge base, there we will be taken into the knowledge base space of Retell. So if you just go to clinic, you can just click edit, and then you can just add information. You can add web pages, you can add files like PDFs, or you can just add text manually. After you've done that, you can just click save, right? Then you will have created your own knowledge base. And from the agent here, you can just choose your own knowledge base of like which knowledge base the AI agent has access to. So now it has access to the clinic knowledge base. Now, you can actually adjust some settings. Now, I'm not sure if you guys know too much about kind of how knowledge bases work, but essentially for a very high level, when we plug it into the knowledge base, it doesn't actually plug the entire document in there. It actually chunks it into multiple chunks. So it actually divides it into different pieces, if you will, basically chunks, so that when the agent go ahead and retrieves the information, it only retrieves the most relevant chunk or the most relevant piece, if you will, that are most relevant to the user's question. So if the user asks what are the hours of operation, you will just retrieve the chunk that has the hours of operations, right? You will retrieve the chunk that has like, let's say the vaccine policy, for example. You won't do that, right? Because that's just wasting context into the prompt, in the context window. So therefore, from here, you can actually choose the maximum number of chunks to retrieve from the knowledge base back to the agent. And you can have similarity threshold. So this is basically how strict the system is when matching chunks to the context. So higher settings gives you fewer but more similar matches. So it's like how much of a tolerance do you want the chunks to? So the higher the similarity score, meaning that the more likely the chunks that you retrieve will be most relevant to your question. But like as you imagine, then basically another way of saying it is like the standards of passing the score will be higher, right? So this is a number that you can play with. Generally, I would just keep it as it is. From here, you can actually adjust your speech settings, right? You can have background sound, or no, I generally just turn it off. Responsibility, control how fast the agent responds after the user's finished speaking. Again, this is something you can experiment with as you test with it. Interruption controls how sensitive the AI can be interrupted by human speech, right? So the higher the sensitivity, the more kind of sensitive the AI will be interrupted by human, right? Backchanneling, basically the agent would just sometimes say, yeah, right, to kind of imitate real life conversations. I've experimented with that. I generally just don't really like it. I just generally like to turn it off. It's a personal choice. Enable speech normalization. This is important. It converts text elements like numbers, currency, and dates to human-like spoken forms. Because it is an LLM, sometimes when you give a number, like say 1,012 pounds, sometimes it will say 1012, for example, right? Obviously, that's not natural if you're talking about money. It doesn't make sense to say like, oh, the total purchase today will be $1012, right? That doesn't make any sense. As a human, it should be able to say $1,012, for example. So this is exactly why we need to enable speech normalization. Again, pronunciation, you can actually just add your own pronunciation, like IPA, like into it for like very difficult words to pronounce. Like this is just a personal preference again. And then you have the real-time transcription settings, which actually allows you to remove noise and background speech, which I usually just turn that on. Transcription mode, you can optimize for speed or accuracy. And in vocabulary specialization, choose the vocabulary set to use for transcription. Now, because these are medical use cases, I just choose medical, of course. Like this is a clinic, right? So I just optimize for healthcare terms. And this is about it. We have some like little settings like core settings, which is not too important. You've got like the post-core data retrieval, which again, for us, it's not really that important because we're to extract the variables. And then you have like some security and fallback settings. This is important for production settings, especially in medical use cases. You choose how Retell stores sensitive data. Now, there are compliance like HIPAA, where you don't want to be handling customers' personal information. So PII stands for personal information, no, personal identifiable information, right? So you can actually control what information retail stores and what it shouldn't store. As an example, you can say like, oh, the name is probably fine. I probably don't want retail to store date of birth and like custom account number, right? And like driver license, passport, SSN, address, phone number, credit card, bank account. So you can choose what retail can store and what retail shouldn't store for compliance, right? This is important. And you can option secure URLs, not too relevant in our use case for now. But yeah, this is pretty much on a high level, most of the basic stuff that you needed to kind of change to configure your very first voice agent. Now, I can very quickly go through the appointment booking agent as well, right? Again, you are Sarah, an appointment booking specialist at the clinic. You're responsible for scheduling patient appointments efficiently and professionally, right? And you have the task to greet the patients warmly and acknowledge any information gathered by Emma. You check the appointments, you schedule the appointments, you confirm all the appointments detail early, and then you extract the patient's phone number for SMS confirmation, and you send the appointment confirmation through SMS and handling any scheduling issues, for example, right? So again, you give them the date and the time. Again, you give them step-by-step the chain of thoughts of what to do. You acknowledge the patient context, which again, from the agent transfer tool, from the receptionist to the appointment agent now should have the context of the name, the date of birth, gender, reason for visit, and the symptoms or concerns, right? And now you're just asking for the preferred appointment time. And then this is where it gets interesting. Use the check availability cow tool to check for available appointment slots. Now, within retail, there's a place of basically how to check for appointments. And it's basically using cow.com. Now, if you didn't know what cow.com is, don't worry, I'm going to show you exactly what that is. Cow.com is basically a third-party tool that simplifies appointment booking and scheduling very easily. So you just need to set up an account, and it's free. After you set up an account, all you have to do is basically sync your account as you sign up to your Google Calendar or your Outlook, Microsoft Outlook, depending on which calendar you're using. After you actually sync cow.com with your own calendar, then you can actually go ahead and create your own event type. Now, I've already gone ahead and created an event type called 30-minute appointment with Dr. Rustoffer, right? You have the title, you have the description, and you automatically generate the URL and the durations, right? Now, from here, what's important is that each event that you create in cow.com has an event ID. The way that you do that is you go to the URL. You can see 3740864, right? That is your event ID. Go ahead and copy that. Go back to the check availability cow and actually go ahead and paste in your event ID here. The second thing that you will need is your API key. So the way to get that is actually, if you go to settings and you go to API keys, you can add your own API keys and just copy paste the API keys into the API key row. Now, I'm just going to, obviously, I'll delete this API key after this video, but go ahead and copy paste in your own API key. From here, you also have the option to choose your time zone depending where you are. I'm just going to leave it for now, but you can just choose your own country, let's say Brazil or Germany, and your own city, depending on where you are. You should also give a description. So when the user asks for availability, check the calendar and provide available slots, right? This is a tool call that you can choose. Now, after it checks for the availability, right, which let's say through cow.com to your Google Calendar, then it's going to obviously say the available, whether the date suggested by the user is available. If it is, then go ahead and actually call the book appointment cow tool to secure the appointment. So again, you use the book appointment cow tool, which is book on the calendar. Cow.com is a retail default, like kind of a templated function. You just, again, need the API and the event ID again. This is where the user will actually go ahead and book the appointment. However, if the dates are not available, the agent will actually present other options, right, to the user and say that, hey, this is actually not available, but I have something close to it. Would other time slots work for you? As an example. You go ahead and book the appointment. And then the last step is like extract the phone number, which is after successfully book the appointment, you should basically send an SMS. So I would just like to send you an SMS confirmation. What's the best number to reach you, right? Then you use the extract number. So it's the extract dynamic variables, right, to extract the phone number of the user to send an SMS confirmation. And then, being very handily retail, they have a send SMS to call, which basically means that if I go back to the send SMS, you can have a description or send the SMS after the appointment has been booked. And then you inform the user a confirmation of the appointment with summary of the appointment details like location and date time. So this is just kind of standard use case, right? When after you book an appointment, you usually get an SMS confirmation. This is how you would do it, by calling the send SMS to call. And you just confirm everything, summarize everything, send the SMS, and then just close the call, right? This is it. And then just use the end call to call it, right? This is pretty much the prompt for this specific agent. This is how you can do appointment settings in Cal.com. So yeah, congratulations. You just built your first, two voice agents on Retell. So let's actually try it out now. Now, unfortunately, because within Retell, by the way, if you want to get a number, the way that you would do that is by going to phone numbers and click plus to actually buy a new number. Usually, I recommend buying from Twilio. But unfortunately, right now, we only have the options to buy from the United States and Canada. Now, currently, I'm in the UK. Unfortunately, you can't call numbers from the US to the UK. So therefore, for now, I just have to use the web version, the web call version, to kind of show you how it looks like.
I'm Amy, your digital assistant, ready to navigate through challenges and streamline your day. Thanks for calling Dr. Eva Rostova's medical clinic. How can I help you today?
Hey, I just want to book an appointment, just not feeling too well.
I'm really sorry to hear you're not feeling well. I'd be happy to help you get scheduled so you can get the care you need. Can you tell me a little more about what you're experiencing?
Yeah, it's just like my ear has been really itchy and like it's been hurting a little bit.
Thank you for sharing that with me. That sounds uncomfortable and I'm glad you reached out. How long have you been experiencing the itchiness and pain in your ear?
Like for a week now.
Thank you for letting me know. That must be frustrating to deal with for so long. Have you noticed anything else, like any discharge from your ear, trouble hearing, or fever?
No, not really.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate you letting me know. May I have your full name, please, so I can make sure we have your information ready for the appointment?
Yeah, it's Tom Smith.
Thank you, Tom. And may I ask your age or date of birth?
Yeah, it's 6th of August, 2000.
Thank you, Tom. How would you like us to address you? Do you prefer he, him pronouns?
Yeah.
Thank you for confirming that, Tom. Just to make sure I have everything right, you'd like to book an appointment because your ear has been itchy and hurting for about a week, but you haven't noticed any discharge, trouble hearing, or fever. Is there anything else you'd like to share about your symptoms or anything else you're concerned about?
Not really.
Thank you for sharing all of that with me, Tom. I want to make sure you get the care you need, and Dr. Rostova and our team will be able to help you with this. I'm going to connect you now with our appointment booking team. I've shared all the information you've told me, so they'll be able to schedule you right away.
Hi, Tom. This is Sarah from the appointment team. Emma shared your information with me, and I understand you're calling because your ear has been itchy and hurting for about a week. Let's get you scheduled with Dr. Rostova as soon as possible. What day works best for you for your appointment? Do you prefer mornings or afternoons, or are there any days you'd like to avoid?
Hey, yeah. Maybe as soon as possible. Maybe like this Friday morning, like 9 a.m. Does that work?
Let me check our schedule for this Friday morning to see if we have a 9 a.m. appointment available for you. Good news, Tom. We do have availability this Friday, October 31st at 9 a.m. Would you like me to book that slot for you, or would you like to hear about any other available times that morning?
Nah, go for it.
Perfect. I'll book you for Friday, October 31st at 9 a.m. with Dr. Rostova. Could you please provide the best phone number to reach you? I'll send you a text confirmation with all your appointment details.
Yeah.
Also, may I have your email address for our records?
Sure. So my phone number is +44 749 2321 279, and my email is 123@gmail.com.
I'm booking you for Friday, October 31st at 9 a.m. with Dr. Rostova. Thank you, Tom. Let me confirm everything. I have you scheduled as Tom Smith for Friday, October 31st at 9 a.m. with Dr. Rostova for your ear pain and itchiness. Is that all correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Great. I've sent a confirmation text to your phone number with all your appointment details. Tom, your appointment is all set for Friday, October 31st at 9 a.m. with Dr. Rostova. Please remember to bring your photo ID and insurance card and try to arrive about 10-15 minutes early for check-in. If you need to cancel or reschedule, just give us a call at +1 555 987 6543. Is there anything else I can help you with today?
No, that's all. Appreciate it.
Thank you for calling Dr. Rostova's clinic, Tom. And we'll see you on Friday, October 31st at 9 a.m. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you. Nice. So he ends the call. And if you go back to my calendar, you can see that this is in UK time, by the way. So this is obviously not the correct time for 4 p.m. because we're in the UK. So you can see I put in my email address as 123@gmail.com. So yeah, it will be a 30-minute appointment between Dr. Rostova and Dev team. So okay, moving on to the next agent, which we are going to be building a sales agent for a travel agency. Imagine a use case, right, where you're a big travel agency and then you've got lots of volume of people trying to inquire about travel plan. It's holiday season, Christmas is coming. So, plans for holiday, there are going to be a lot of people booking in, trying to find the perfect holiday package, right? So that would be a perfect use case for an inbound voice agent that can actually answer the call and actually dig deep into the customer's needs and actually try to recommend the perfect holiday package for the specific customer. So the way to do that, again, we've established that single prompt agent is really good for demoing, it's really good for simple use cases. But in here, we actually want to try a little bit more complex and more sophisticated conversational flow. So the way to do that is we're going to click on voice agent and we're going to actually select multi-prompt agent and just click create. Now, I've already created one, so I'm just going to click on my agent. Now, the setup for the multi-prompt agent is actually very similar, as you can see, to the single prompt agent. You get the prompt, you can select your models, etc. You can select all the tool calls, the knowledge base, switch settings, everything is exactly the same. So I'm not going to dive too deep into it. But the only thing that's different is that in a multi-prompt agent, you have this global prompt here, but you also call what we call prompt tree. Now, if you click into it, a prompt tree is basically a way of defining different conversational states. So what is a state, right? So it is kind of an abstract thing, it's an abstraction. So a state is basically, in this use case, is basically one section of a conversational flow. As an example, all conversations start with the greeting state. So this state, all it does is try to greet the users and try to listen to their questions to actually get why they're calling in the first place, right? An intro, greeting, whatever you want to call it, that's called a state. Then after this part of the conversation basically complete, then it moves on to the next state or the next part of the conversation. Imagine just a state is a part of a conversation, right? So after intro, it will go to let's say inspiration mode or discovery. We'll dive into it soon. But just to give you an idea, basically prompt trees is a way to allow you to logically kind of branch out different parts of the conversation and link different parts of the conversation together to map out what the conversational flow will look like, right? That is the multi-prompt agent. Now, in this use case, in a general guidelines of how do we actually build this multi-prompt agent, well, one is to actually have the global prompt as usual. However, a good practice is actually to not put the specific tasks in this prompt. Instead, put inside this global prompt the things that you expect to be consistent throughout the conversation. As an example, identity. You're Alex, an inbound sales agent for Wanderlust Journeys. You help potential travelers who have reached out expressed interest in booking a trip. You are warm, enthusiastic, and knowledgeable about travel and a journey of passion for helping people create memorable experiences, right? That will never change throughout the conversation, right? The voice agent should be acting as the inbound sales agent throughout the call. So that's why it's okay to put that inside this global prompt. Same with the style guardrails, be warm, enthusiastic, be concise, be conversational, be proactive, one question at a time, use natural day, listen actively. These are all style. These are all the actual style that you wanted to talk, right? How it should talk, how it should behave. It should be consistent throughout the conversations, right? So that's why it's actually okay to put that inside the global prompt. Same with the response guidelines, tone calibration, etc. Right? So that's why this prompt is kind of shorter. But the one thing that we don't have here, again, is the specific tasks. That's because the tasks is dependent on the specific phase of the conversation, if you will. So let's actually go ahead and click on the edit prompt tree. We start with the starting state. So the way that you create a new state, you just click on new state, and then you would just have a new state, right? So here, and then you just double click into it. From here, you can just add your prompts. You can just add 2 calls as usual, right? The 2 calls that you've been seeing in a single prompt agent is also accessible within here. So that's the good thing, right? Because that means you can actually carefully tell the agent, right, that within this phase, this part of the conversation, only in this part of the conversation do I want the agent to activate these certain tools. As an example, only during the schedule stage or the schedule part of the conversation do I want the voice agent to book a calendar on cal.com, for example, right? So it gives you so much control over when the agent should be calling the tools. MCPs, now, if you don't know what that is, don't worry. Like, you shouldn't be using that for production because of security, but that's another story. For now, let's just focus on tool calling using APIs, right? I'm going to be deleting this. Now, I'm just going to walk you through how I structure this kind of conversational flow, this kind of stateful machine in this voice agent. So within here, we have the starting state, right? We basically add the tasks. We should create the caller want me. We should ask how we can help them today, listen to their response. If they mention a specific destination or trip type, transition to destination discovery. However, if they ask about services or how things work, transition to service overview. If they seem unsure, just browsing, transition to inspirational, right? So there's 3 different possibilities here, right? This is the amazing thing about building this kind of multi-prompt agents, is having you this control over so many different possibilities that could happen during a conversation. Now, in a normal call, right, if the user knows what they're doing, great, then you can just work with them on that. However, if they just want a little bit more information, you should have some sort of FAQs, right? We covered that before, for a knowledge base to actually try the answers to users' questions, hence the service overview. If they seem unsure or just browsing, you probably need a little bit more discovery from the agent side. So that's why you need to transition them to a different node so that the agent can focus specifically on asking discovery or like clarification questions. There are different transition rules here. So you can, this is another part of the prompt where like the best practice for building a multi-prompt agent is to define very, very precisely what are the rules to transition from one state to another. Right, so I'm saying if there's specific destination mentioned, you should transition to destination discovery, right? So then ask, what do you offer? How does this work? If the user asks these things, then go to service overview. If the user asks about pricing upfront, like you go to budget discussion, right, etc. So you have different rules very clearly defined where you should structure the conversational flow. You also have available tools, right? You should let the agent know what tools it has in this specific state. For now, because it's in the intro stage, so it has no available tools. There are 4 possibilities after branching, right? So you can either go to, if the user knows what they're doing, you just go to destination discovery. If the user has general questions about the travel agency itself, you go to the service overview state. If the user actually is not sure and you need a little more probing, a little more discovery, you go to inspiration mode. If the user just asks about pricing upfront, that means they're very, very conscious about pricing. We actually have a state specifically to handle pricing objections and pricing concerns called budget discussions. So this is where it would take from the intro state to each of these conversational states. And the way to connect between one state and another is called an edge, right? This is called an edge. The edge is basically how you go from one state to another. You basically define the logic of when and how to go from one state to another. So we have a path condition, right? Basically, it describes the condition that triggers the transition. So you basically just write out your conditions traveling from one state to another state again. So in this case, it would be when the user is being fake or they're unsure or they're just browsing, right? Just looking, not sure yet. Transition to inspiration mode for further discovery, right? This defines the edge between the intro starting state and the inspiration mode conversational state. And the way you do that, by the way, guys, is you have 2 states here, right? Let's say I have 2 conversational states from here to here. All I have to do is define the edge, is to drag this and connect the 2 nodes together. And from here, you just click on the edge and you define your own edge logic like I've done before. So I'm just going to delete that very quickly. And also within the edge, you'll probably be able to actually recognize that in the schema, right? This is basically a schema. It's basically define how you can store certain variables from one conversational state to another. I'll show you what I mean by that in a second when we actually encounter an edge that has this JSON schema. But don't read too much. It's basically a way of extracting variables, extracting data from one part of the conversation, and making sure the next part or the next phase of the conversation also retains that context throughout the conversation. Now, same here from the intro to destination discovery, and then from the intro to service overview, etc. Now, let's say the user actually doesn't know what they want and they go to the inspiration mode. This is where we could ask them to help them explore what kind of trip might excite them, right? So what makes you want to explore travel right now, right? This is important because this leads to the customers opening up. Again, I'm just explaining to the LLM why I should be asking this question, right? So making sure that the LLM really like ask this good question, right? Because it's an open-ended question. That's what you should be doing in the discovery. What makes you interested in booking holidays right now, right? Do not put options to restrict your choices because the user doesn't know what they're doing. So doesn't know what they want specifically. So it must be, so the agent should try to open up them a little bit and try to dig deep into what they actually want, right? So listen to the answer, but do not build fake excitement around it. Offer 2 to 3 destination suggestions that match their interest. Once they've shown interest in the direction, transition to the destination discovery, right? So we're going back. So once the user actually confirmed they want to travel somewhere, you then tone in into a single conversational state. And then you define the transitional states and you define the available tools. In this case, the tools will just be the knowledge base, right? So the agent has reference to what kind of plan they have, right? So you've got the inspiration mode. Again, after the user has finished the discovery with the agent, then it travels through this edge specifically back to the destination discovery, where the destination discovery is where the user already know what they want, right? So you just confirm or clarify the destination of interest. You ask about the travel dates and time frame. You get the clarity on the trip length. You ask about the number of travelers. And if you're traveling others, clarify who they are. Once you have the destination, the dates of the travel, how long they will be traveling, and the travelers themselves, you use the extract details tool, remember our first tool call, and then after you have used the tool call, you transition to the budget discussion, right? So basically all that means is once this step is basically confirming the travel details of the users, and once that's confirmed, then you move to pricing, right? And to extract the details, the way you do that again is to use the extract dynamic variable tool call, the kind of template tool call inside Retell. And you just again add in the description, you add in the variables that you want to extract, right? So for example, destination to confirm destination of the user, dates, the time frame of the trip the user wants, traveler, the number of travelers going to the trip, and durations, basically how long the trip is going to last, right? So you have this tool call, and it's going to extract all the information from the destination discovery node. And afterwards, after the destination discovery node, then it will usually it can go to the budget discussion. However, if they've mentioned special needs, right? So accessibility or medical, or the destination requires complex planning, like multiple stops here and there, safari, etc. So like complicated use cases, we always have a human in the loop. Again, remember when we talked about designing agents? We always have a safety net, like a human in the loop that can always let the user try to connect to the human team. And that's where the schedule consultation state comes from. This is the schedule consultation state, right? This is where it allows you to book appointments with the human team to go through any questions or any uncertainties that they might have. So you can see this edge here, right? Basically triggers when the user has special needs or has complex travel planning, such as multiple stops, etc. Right. So this is where you can go to the schedule consultation, right? By the way, same thing with the discovery. Like you should always allow, again, still very uncertain after 3 exchanges, you should still always allow an option to go to the human in the loop, which is the schedule consultation, right? Now, if indeed the user has questions about like the kind of general things about the agency, they can just always use service overview. Basically, it briefly explains what the travel agency does, mention the planning fee, emphasizing the value, etc. So this is basically using the knowledge base in the agent to basically allow question answering conversations within the entire call, right? And then we have budget discussion, right? Which is basically when the user's confirmed where they want to go, or when the user is very concerned about pricing, this is where we'll take them to this part of the conversation. The budget discussion is to gently introduce the budget conversation to find the perfect fit. What kind of budget you're working with, right? This is how we suggest to write hotels and experience. If they give a number, acknowledge it will positively and confirms what's included in that range. Use again the knowledge base to provide pricing guidelines. If they ensure offer ranges most travelers to, let's say, the destination spent between X to Y per person, right? And then you basically try to do some sort of like objective pricing objection as well. This is very common in sales school. So if the user is concerned about budget and pricing, the way you do that is like, hey, I understand, right? You try to understand that like travel is an investment and the budget is a lot of investment. And then you can single out the objection, right? If we were to do it for free and pricing is not concerned, is everything we discussed so far sounds good? It's just again another sales technique. If they say yes, then you can explain the value, right? And then if they push back on the budget, then the budget, and only then do you actually like try to offer alternatives that maybe slightly more budget to the user essentially. And then you have the different transition rules, etc. Right? So this is where you handles all of the pricing concerns. And after that's done, then we always again go back to the scheduled consultation, right? So you always schedule a consultation with the human team to confirm everything and actually book it, right? So you can again you extract the user details to collect the name, email, and phone number. You have to check availability to check for available time slots in Cal.com. You then book the available time slots in using the book availability tools in Cal.com again, right? And you send the SMS to confirm, just like how we did with the single prompt agent, and then you end the call after successful booking, right? This is pretty standard, just appointment scheduling, right? I will leave that for you to kind of write your own prompt for that if you want, but you can just kind of copy this if you want. Just post the video and copy this prompt if you want as well, right? So use the appointment to, etc. And then you define the transition rules and you define the available tools. Hopefully that gives you a very high level idea of like how we think about mapping out multi-prompt agents, right? Basically, you define what conversational states you want, and you define the transition between different conversational states, right? This is how you can go from one like conversational state to another, essentially. So hopefully that makes sense. By the way, I also want to quickly go through like what the conversational edge is. So the conversational edge within the JSON schema, basically this schema defines what information, as I said, goes from one conversational state to another. And the way you do that is follow this structure is, first of all, you have the type, which is an object. You define the properties, right? And you have the destination, right? You define what variables you want to transfer from one conversational state to another conversational state. For example, destination, you define the data type, which is a string, which is text. Description, you give the description, the destination of the user that's confirmed. You also want to pass duration, right? How long the user would like to travel. The dates, again, it's a string. The user's travel dates, the time frame. Travelers, the number of travelers and who they are, and required. Basically, you just in this schema, you let the LM knows exactly which variables are required that they must collect and they must pass from one conversational state to another conversational state. In that case, all four variables, destination, date, travelers, and duration must be passed to the next conversational state, right? Again, if this is a little bit too difficult, don't worry too much about it. I would literally just like click on these examples and like maybe plug it into ChatGPT to help you, right? This shouldn't be too difficult, like, right, to define this JSON schema, right? And yeah, this is basically how you would think about like this kind of conversational state, right, in agents. Now let me go back. And now the last thing that I added is also like a knowledge base, right? We covered that already. So this knowledge base is very much just like a PDF of like all the different like kind of made up examples of like all the different possible holiday plans and the packages, etc. Just for the agent to have such context. So now let me go ahead and actually test it out.
Hey, thanks for calling Wanderlust Journeys. How can I help you today?
Hey, I'm just looking to travel for a holiday. I'm not sure what to choose.
No worries at all. That's what I'm here for. What makes you want to explore travel right now? Are you celebrating something, looking for a break, or just feeling the itch to get away?
Really, like just because of Christmas, like just want to get away for a little bit.
Got it. The holidays are a perfect time to escape and recharge. Are you hoping for somewhere warm and sunny, maybe a classic winter wonderland or something totally different?
Probably some like warmer because it's quite cold here.
Sounds like you're craving some sunshine. If you're looking to warm up this Christmas, a few destinations come to mind: the Caribbean for beautiful beaches, Costa Rica for adventure and nature, or maybe Mexico for vibrant culture and great weather. Do any of those sound interesting, or would you like more ideas?
Costa Rica sounds good.
Great choice. Costa Rica is amazing for adventure, wildlife, and beautiful beaches. When during the Christmas season, are you hoping to travel right around Christmas Day or a bit before or after?
Like a week before Christmas?
Perfect. That's a wonderful time to visit before the big holiday crowds arrive. How long would you like your Costa Rica adventure to last? Are you thinking about a quick getaway or a longer escape?
Probably like 2 weeks.
2 weeks in Costa Rica sounds fantastic. You'll have plenty of time to explore rainforests, beaches, and maybe even try some zip lining. Will you be traveling solo, or is anyone joining you on this adventure?
Yeah, I'll be going here with my partner.
That sounds like a wonderful getaway for you and your partner. To find the perfect fit, what kind of budget are you working with? This helps me suggest the right hotels and experiences for your Costa Rica adventure.
I'm pretty flexible, so whatever you have, let me know.
Absolutely. I can give you a sense of what most travelers spend for a 2-week Costa Rica trip. For a comfortable experience, nice eco lodges, guided tours, and some private activities, most people spend between $900 and $1,200 per person per week, not including flights. For 2 weeks, that's about $1,800 to $2,400 per person. Does that range sound about right for what you had in mind? Or would you like to explore more budget-friendly or more luxurious options?
I think you got it now. I think it's too expensive.
I totally understand. Travel is an investment, and $1,800 to $2,400 per person is a significant amount. If we were to do it for free and pricing wasn't a concern, does everything we've talked about so far, Costa Rica, 2 weeks, adventure and relaxation with your partner, sound good to you?
Yeah, everything sounds good. It's just the price.
Thanks for being honest. If you weren't able to take this holiday this year, what would that mean for you and your partner? Would you feel like you're missing out on a much needed break, or is it something you could easily postpone?
Probably, yeah. I feel like, yeah, you're right. I mean, we weren't able to have holidays all year, so this would be a really nice break for us, right?
Absolutely. It sounds like you both deserve some time away to recharge. We can absolutely work within your budget. There are ways to make Costa Rica more affordable, like traveling just before peak season, mixing in some budget-friendly hotels, or focusing on a few key experiences instead of packing every day. Would you like me to connect you with one of our advisors who can show you exactly what's possible at different price points?
Yeah,
that way you can see all your options and decide what feels right.
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Great. I'll get you set up with James, our specialist in premium and budget-friendly travel planning. He'll walk you through options that fit your needs and budget. To get started, can I have your name, email, and phone number so James can reach out and be ready for your call?
Yeah, sure. So it's Tom Smith. The email is 123@gmail.com, and my phone number is +45 665 755 656.
Thanks, Tom. Would you prefer to chat with James in the morning or afternoon? He's available weekdays and Saturday, so just let me know what works best for you.
I don't really mind. Maybe like morning?
Let me check James's availability for mornings over the next week so we can get you scheduled at a convenient time. James has a couple of morning slots open this week. Would you like to book Thursday at 9 a.m. or would another morning work better for you?
Yeah, Thursday's fine.
I'll book you in for Thursday at 9 a.m. with James. He'll call you then and will already know about your Costa Rica plans and budget preferences. Come with any questions or ideas you want to discuss. I'm sending you a text with your appointment details and a summary of what we discussed, so you have everything handy. You're all set, Tom. James will call you Thursday at 9 a.m. to help plan your Costa Rica adventure. If you think of anything else before then, just reach out. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye. Perfect. So this is basically how we can envision building one of these like travel agents, right? So again, it takes me through the sales, takes me through discovery to the closing, and then it's trying to offer me alternatives, like pushing back on the prices, and try to connect me to human to actually close the sales, right? So yeah, hopefully you've gained some knowledge, experience, how to think about building a multi-prompt agent. Okay, and the third build that we're going to be building today is a lead reactivation use cases for a dental clinic. And maybe I can talk about a little about the use cases, right? I mentioned dental clinic, but of course you can also mention it also works for any service-based industry essentially, like HVAC, lawyers, real estate agency, especially real estate, especially. Basically, how this works is basically you have a CRM of old leads that you have some sort of interaction with, right? So you've talked to them for quite a long time, but they just maybe ghost you, they didn't respond to you, maybe they have some sort of free consultation, some sort of phone call you have with the leads. You have already built a report. They're kind of warm in a sense, but they just never took action and actually moved forward to your main offer and buy from your company, for example. And the leads are just sitting there in the database, and the team just doesn't have the time to actually follow up, or they just don't have the time to actually cold call them, right? Go to them back, not cold call, but call them back and be like, hey, I noticed you actually had free consultation with us last month. So maybe I can get an idea of how you're doing in terms of thinking about our offer, right? Or something similar to that, right? So this is where the lead reactivation use case comes from. And to build that, we'll be using the conversational flow agent type within Retell AI. To do that, I'm just going to create an agent, and you click on voice agent. And now you will just click on conversational flow agent and click on create. Now I've already created that, so I'm just going to click on it. Once you're in, you will see a blank canvas that's very similar to how most local tools actually built. Like any local tools, it's a drag and drop interface that actually connects between different nodes, like a graph-based interface. Basically, all of the nodes are extremely similar to what you've seen so far in single and multi-prompt agent, like the function, the call transfer, the press digit, which is the IVR, logic split node, this is new, agent transfer, SMS, extract variable, MCP, and ending. Those are all old function calls. But the difference is you can just click on this and it will appear as a node inside this canvas where you can just drag and drop and connect your logic that way. For now, I'm just going to delete that. However, the most important node that you need to be aware of in this conversational agent will be the conversation node. So just click on that. And once you're here, you have two options. You either have the prompt where you can actually write a prompt, just like a multi-prompt agent. You can write your own local prompt in here, or you can have a static sentence, meaning that the voice agent will always say this sentence every single time when it arrives in this node, right? And of course, you can have the transition. You can add transition, and you can describe your transition logic just like the edge transition in a multi-prompt agent. So this is kind of what you will be working with a lot. Now, you can obviously skip response. So it jumps to the next one without waiting for user response, right? So right now, if I say something, let's say I have a welcome note, right? It say, hi, this is Grace from ABC Dental Clinic. Am I speaking with name, right? You have two options. The user is either, let's say I am Tom, or I'm not Tom, right? The user has to say something for the transition to take place. Whereas if you click on skip response, right, that means that the user doesn't have to say something and the agent will skip directly to the next node, right? Global node allows other nodes to jump into the node without edges, right? An edge is basically how you connect between one node to another, right? This is an edge, right? If I just click on plus and drag here, this is an edge. A global node basically tells the agent that it doesn't need to be directly connected in this graph to actually for the agent to be able to access it. All other nodes will basically be able to access it as long as it basically meets the requirement of this global node. And you can give examples, right? You can give example conversations. Again, just like fine-tuning, you can provide example conversations to basically teach the LM when this will make sense to go into this global prompt. You can block interruptions. You can choose a different LLM for this node. You can add a node knowledge base, meaning that you can add a local knowledge base and provide context to the agent. So remember how in multi-prompt and single prompt agent, the knowledge base are all global, meaning that the entire agent will have access to this global knowledge base. However, in a conversational flow, the advantage is that you can actually provide knowledge base specific to the local node only. The advantage of that is that unlike a global knowledge base, specific local knowledge base means that it teaches the agent such that it will only refer to the knowledge base at a very specific time or specific phase of the conversation, meaning that it will be more accurate. But also, it means it will use less resources, meaning that irrelevant nodes, for example, the greeting node, right, the welcome node, it doesn't make sense to actually have the welcome node to have access to the knowledge base, for example, right? So that would be just a waste of time and tokens, right? So that's the advantage of having a node base, a local knowledge base. Again, similar to single multi-prompt agent, you can have fine-tuning examples where you can add examples of how you envision the conversation to take place. But now I'm just gonna connect the node back to it, right? And this is what the conversation node is for. Now, if you go back to the main canvas, you can see there is also a global settings. As the name suggests, just like the multi-prompt agent, the global prompt basically allows all other nodes to have access to this information. In this example, we will be basically having, again, a global prompt. We're given a role where it is, you are a caring, empathetic follow-up specialist for ABC Dental Clinic. You're reaching out to patients to receive the treatment plan recommendation but haven't moved forward with it. Your goal is not to pressure or sell, it's to genuinely understand what's holding them back and see if you can actually help. You believe that if someone isn't moving forward, there's always a real reason, right? Whether it's cost, fear, timing, confusion, or something else entirely. Your job is to uncover that reason with curiosity and compassion that either help solve it or gratefully accept their decision. Right. So this is basically a core mission, right? A role that every single node should have access to, right? Again, it's not trying to sell anything. It's not one of those agents where hey, do you want this for $55 or something like that? It's not like this. It's actually genuinely trying to be understanding, right? Trying to understand what the customer needs are, what the problems are, trying to be empathetic and actually get their situations, right? Not just selling. Again, be genuinely curious, basically how it should act, be helpful, not pushy, etc., right? And the good thing is, it should have context of the patient. From, let's say, the patient's name, which is the variable name, last visit date, when did they last visit, any notes from the consultation, the variable notes, email, the variable email, the patient's phone number, the phone number. Now, don't worry, this is not just magically provided, right? This will be provided from a mock CRM that I've set up, right? A customer relationship management system, right? For your business. You probably know this. You probably have a CRM or a lead list that you can actually extract the information from. We'll set up an automation that will trigger this kind of outbound calls on a schedule. And then you have the conversational flow, right? You have the opening message, how it should behave, the key elements, discovery phase, basically how you should structure the entire conversational flow. Again, this is depending on your business logic, so I wouldn't go too much into it. I would actually encourage you to actually write your own conversational logic depending on your use case. But if you want to just follow my examples, I will actually have the template with the link in the description, so you can just plug and play, essentially. This is basically the global prompt. You then have the access to knowledge base, which I haven't added anything because it doesn't need to be. Again, we have the node level, local level knowledge base, not the global knowledge base that we need to set. Every settings will be exactly like the single multi-prompt agent, so I'm not going to go too much into that. So let me have an explanation of how this flow works. First, we'll greet the user, right? This is Grace from ABC, am I speaking with name? If the user is indeed who they are, then we say, perfect. Do you have a minute to speak right now? Ask for permission to speak, right? If the user is not the person they're asking for, just say, I'm sorry. Thank you for understanding, right? Have a wonderful day. And just end the call, right? And then if the user does have a minute, right, or doesn't have a minute, then say, no problem. Feel free to call us back. Have a nice day. If they do have a minute and they give you permission to speak, then that's where you actually have the main conversational logic, where we always start with discovery, trying to understand the real problems. The patient has indicated they are available to talk. This is where we use the prompt settings, by the way. Now is your moment to genuinely understand what's been holding them back from moving forward with the treatment plan. use notes to reference the situation. By the way, I missed a colon bracket. To reference the specific patient situation. Last is the patient's last video. It's basically teaching the LLM what these variables actually mean. Again, you just repeat the mission, the discovery framework, you have like an opening message, right? And then you listen for the first layer, kind of the service reason, and then you try to dig deeper into the actual reason why they didn't take the treatment that they want, right? Again, this applies to any business settings that you have, right? You try to dig deeper into why the customers didn't kind of goes to you or didn't kind of follow up with your main offer in the first place, right? This is where the digging deep layer comes from, etc., right? And then you dig to the emotional core, etc., right? It's basically is a kind of like a sales framework of like how you envision the agent should behave. And if the user indicates, okay, actually they want to schedule treatment, great. Then you use the agent transfer node from here. You just click on here, and it will take you to the appointment setting node that we've already set up in the single prompt agent, right? And then that's it. Seems like, and if the transfer call failed, then we just say your colleague is busy right now, we'll call you back, and that's it, right? However, if the user is not interested despite multiple objections handling, meaning that within this node, we will have multiple objections handling, this like in a sales call, to try to like basically get the client to the finish line, right? If the customers still say they don't want it, that's fine, no problem at all. Have an exit strategy for the agent, right? And just be like, you've done genuine discovery, understood their barriers, offer helpful solutions, and they're still declining. This is the moment to gracefully exit with dignity and future goodwill intent. Respect the node completely and completely continue to push damage trust. Like, right, you're basically teaching the agent like it shouldn't push for the sales too much. The reason, and you explain the reason why that will actually harm you, right, as the business, right? And you basically define how the exit flow looks like. Again, I'm trying to teach you like how to fish, basically. I'm not trying. Basically, we have a very, very structured framework of how we prompt this thing. We always have a context, right? If you're aware, we have the core principle. We're trying to teach the LLM how it should behave, how it should call, the reason behind that, etc. And then you define exactly how the conversational flow that you envision to take place, right? So this is where you can have this kind of exit strategy, etc., right? And then, yeah, and then you basically want to update the notes section, right? Basically, the notes was basically, if you remember, the notes taken by the admin during the last visit, and now it's no longer updated because you have this call, and you will just update it with the summary of the conversation that we had this time, right? Etc. Date, the outcome, the real barrier, the key details, the future contract, the next section, etc. Right? And then after you finish writing the prompt, you then define another transition. Basically, say you've successfully exited the conversation with either the user is happy for you to call them back in 3 months' time, or they ask you not to bother them again, right? And then you have a function call that can actually update the CRM, right? So maybe this is a good time to actually talk a little bit about how we talk about the CRM. So the way that we build the CRM actually is through N8N. N8N is an automation platform that actually allows you to schedule like these automation workflows. I've done so many videos on N8N in this channel as well, so please feel free to check it out by the end of this video with kind of links in here somewhere. But basically, let me just go over this real quickly. All N8N workflows have a schedule, right? And then you basically have like schedule, when do you want to trigger it, like seconds, minutes, hours, days, right? I just call it day for now. It doesn't really matter. And then you basically loop over each items, right? We basically have a data table within N8N, right? If you don't know what that is, you just click on what's new, and then you just click on Airtable. It's actually a new feature within N8N. So an Airtable is basically a structured database hosted within N8N that makes it very easy to store values. This is basically my mock CRM. In the real world, you should be using like the CRM that you're using, like for example, Soho or like Go High Level, etc. There's all different kind of like CRM nodes being ingested in N8N. So feel free to use them for your specific CRM, for your business. But for now, I'm just going to stick with the one that inside N8N, kind of the mock CRM, and show you what that is. So from here, it looks a bit like this, just like a kind of like a spreadsheet, if you will. It's actually called an SQL database. So you will have an ID, you will have the name, in this case, it will be the patient name, right? Like Tom Smith. You will have the email, you have the phone number, you will have the last visited, right? And you have the notes. This is why I was talking about the notes. which is basically the notes that was first written down by the admin team during the consultation, right? So for now, it's basically said finish consultation with recommended treatment plan to remove overgrown wisdom teeth, right? You will have the created ad and updated ad, right? So right now, you want to inject these contexts into your retail voice agent, right? So the way that you do that is basically schedule a trick, a webhook. A webhook, again, is just a way that allows your voice agent, your retail voice agent, to talk to your data table or your CRM, whatever your CRM is, right? So you have a webhook, you have an address, right? You just need to copy this webhook URL. And then all you have to do is click on the function node. And you can add your own function. And for this case, I will click on custom function. After here, you can name your own function and give a description of your function. But the most important part is to paste your NAN webhook into this API endpoint. This is what allows your voice agent to talk and save data through your NAN workflow into your CRM, right? And from here, you basically define, again, remember how this is very similar to the edge in the multi-prompt agent? This is exactly the same. Again, you're just defining exactly what data you want to pass from your retail voice agent to your CRM. So I can just put an example here. It looks exactly the same. But let me just show you what I've got so far, right? I've got the update CRM, and I've defined the data that I need to pass from retail to the CRM, the data table. Again, we have the type object, we have the properties. The first one, which is the phone number, which is the patient's phone number, right? And then we have the notes, which is the updated notes of the patient. These are the only two required variables, right? Required notes and phone. These are the only two required variables we're trying to pass from retail to N8N, right? And the way that we can do that, right, is that once it passes through the webhook, we will just use the update rows node within the N8N, right? So again, I select the Airtable. I'm trying to match on the conditions because, again, it can have multiple customers, right? So I need to update like notes based on the unique phone number of the customer, because the phone number is the unique identifier of all the patient's record in this dental clinic, right? So this is how it can identify it was Edwin who the AI was literally just talking to, rather than someone like Tom Smith, right? So this is where we can match the conditions. This is why we need to match phone equals to phone number. All you have to do, by the way, is just to run this once, right? Like you just click on listen for test event, have a simulation with Retell AI, then it will automatically populate this within NAN. Now, this is not a masterclass on NAN, so I encourage you to watch some of my other NAN videos, or a lot of NAN videos online on how to do that. But basically, you will just set up an NAN workflow to match on the phone, and you will just pass the new updated notes from the retail agent into your CRM, right? And after you finish the update CRM node, again, you have to wait for result. You basically wait for the function to finish to make sure that it actually populated correctly before confirming to the user, right? After you successfully update the CRM, it will just tell the user the CRM has been successfully updated, ask the user if you can help them further. Yes, the user still needs help, then you just go to the FAQ, right? If no, the user is all good, then you just thank the user and tell them to have a nice day. And then you just end the call. Now, again, don't worry too much about the exact details. I will have the exact template that you can download for free with the link in the description, right? So don't worry too much about just like kind of exactly what the prompt is or exactly how it's being set up, right? Just kind of try to understand why we're doing this and the logic that I'm teaching you through how you should structure a conversation in retail, right? It's more important that you understand it rather than like copy pasting the prompt that I have, right? Okay, so this is pretty much it for how we think about structuring conversational flow agents. We also have an FAQ node that actually allows the user to ask any questions. And this is where like we have the node knowledge base, like very specific, that has only access for this node, right, comes in. But this is not too important. But let me just go ahead and actually test it out right now, right? Unfortunately, because my number is a UK number, and again, I've kind of talked you through this already, where the phone number in retail is only for the US number, and I actually can't call a UK number, right? So normally you would just assign like an agent, right? If I want to assign like an inbound voice agent like this one, I would literally just click on publish, assign an inbound phone number, and then you just need to select the phone number here. Same thing for our outbound voice agent, right? For the clinic reactivation. Unfortunately, we don't have a phone number right now, so I'm just going to call it on the web call. But I can also teach you how to set up some sort of trigger, right? This is where I was talking about. Like you have a trigger, and then you have basically the get rows from the data table from the NA10, and then this is important. This is the most important part. This is how you can schedule the call. It's basically having an API request to Retell itself. Retell has a very good API documentation that allows you to systematically create phone calls, right? This is one of the things that you do. So to create the phone calls, all you have to do is basically go to like code, and you would just follow an example of how you would structure this API call. In this example, right, I basically have the URL, right? And the way that you do that is just copy, right? You just click try it, and then you just copy this entire URL. You have the authorization, right, which is bearer, which is the bearer key, right, which is the token, which you will set up within Retell AI in settings. And you can set up your own API key here, right? This would be your API key. This is where the token comes in. You set up the header to be content type application JSON, right? So again, you just go back to here, you basically type the specific headers, content type, application JSON. Then you just click send body, and you will send this full JSON body. Again, don't get too overwhelmed. Like you can just literally copy paste this. You'll just say call type is phone call. From number, right? It will just from the number that you've assigned to your Retell outbound voice agent that you've bought, the 20 number. To number, this is where like it's trying to dynamically fetch the phone number that it's trying to call based on this CRM, right? For the rest of this, ignore this. Like this is not too important. This is important. Retell LLM dynamic variables. This is how you are able to inject the variables into the context in the Retell voice agent from the CRM, right? In the CRM, you have the name, email, phone, last notes created at, etc. This is how you're able to, by defining this variable, name, email, phone, last visited notes. This is how you're able to actually plug those variables, send it from the CRM to Retell. So during the phone call, the voice agent will have full context of who they're talking to, right? This is how you're able to do that. And yeah, this is exactly how you schedule. Like basically schedule an outbound lead reactivation call, right? Now let's actually test it out.
Hi, this is Grace from ABC Dental Office. Am I speaking with Edwin Chen?
Yeah, you are.
Perfect. Do you have a minute to speak right now?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks for chatting with me, Edwin. So I was looking back and I saw your last visit was in September when Dr. Patel recommended getting those overgrown wisdom teeth removed. I'm really just curious, when you think about that treatment, what's been the main thing making you hesitate or hold off? No pressure at all. I just want to understand what's on your mind.
Yeah, so I don't really remember it, but like it was not, I think Dr. Patel said it was not like a very big like thing to take care of, and I'm really busy with work. So like it's just not on my mind right now.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Work can just take over sometimes. When you think about it, is it mostly just that you're super busy, or is there maybe a part of you that's like not really sure it's something you need to do right now? I just want to get a sense of what's really making you pause. No judgment at all.
Yeah, no worries. I guess like, yeah, it's just not on my mind right now. It's not too important. Like, I'll just leave it for now, maybe.
Yeah, I totally get it, Edwin. Honestly, I appreciate you just being upfront. It sounds like with work and everything, this just isn't a priority for you right now, and that's completely fine. Just so I know for the future, would you like me to check in with you again in a few months, or would you rather just reach out if and when you feel ready? No pressure either way.
Yeah, maybe call me back in 3 months' time. We'll see.
Just a moment. All right, I've updated everything on my end and set a reminder to check in with you in 3 months. Is there anything else I can help you with right now?
Not really. No, that's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Edwin. I appreciate your time. Have a great day.
See how clean and simple that was, right? And the conversational flow, you're not being pushy, like you're trying to understand. And if it's not a priority, it's not a priority. That's fine. But what if like it is indeed like they just forget about it, right? Then you would just make another sales, right? You can just blast through your CRM list of like, let's say hundreds, like if not thousands of leads that are probably just sitting there doing nothing. And that's why this is such a powerful use case for outbound voice caller. So yeah, again, guys, this is it for me. And if you're a business owner and you think that it's too much work for you to kind of set it up, or like you're just not sure how to set it up, no problem at all. Me and my team actually do a free discovery call and free consultation call where we can actually analyze your business use case and see where voice AI could specifically fit into your business. So if you're interested in working with us, feel free to use the link in the description to book a free discovery call with me and my team. And yeah, I'll see you soon.